7-night cruise, because that will give you a taste. You get to do a number of different ports. You wake up in a new port every day. You know, you can see different countries, multiple countries whilst you're there. It's a very easy way to travel.
Hello, my name is Renae Leith-Manos. Welcome to this podcast, Where To From Here, featuring conversations about luxury travel and how it's changing in every pocket of the globe. I'm here in Sydney today talking to a wonderful woman from the luxury travel business. It always makes me happy to see a woman in high places in this industry, Lisa Pyle, who knows everything about cruising all over Asia Pacific. How are you, Lisa?
Renae, it's so great to talk to you, as I was just saying to your listeners, because we've just had a wonderful first quarter, record numbers yet again across the region. So it's very, very timely that we're speaking to you today about all things cruising across the Asia Pacific region.
That is so exciting. So, of course, you're from Regent 7 Seas Cruises. Now, you are probably going to pass out because I've been writing about travel for more than 2 decades. I've never been on a luxury cruise.
No, I'm not going to pass out because, you know, Renae, you know a bit of my background. And
yes,
prior to cruising, I was a luxury hotelier and I had never done a cruise. And so if you had said to me 10 years ago, you're going to go from luxury hotels to luxury cruising, I would have actually thought you were quite bonkers.
right.
So, you know, the perception of cruising over the years has certainly changed.
Right.
And but I can tell you now, Renae, once you start cruising, it's life-changing.
Really?
And you will never look back.
What does it look like? And what does upscale luxury and high-end cruising look like in 2024?
Well, you know, of course, last year in November, we launched the brand new Seven Seas Grandeur, which once again has set another standard in luxury cruising. She is incredibly magnificent. This is a floating 6-star hotel, absolutely beautiful. You know, you imagine going into some of those finest hotels in Europe, some of the Grand Dames, you know, like the Georges V in Paris, the Peninsula Paris, the Peninsula London. I mean, getting on Grandeur is exactly like walking into those wonderful Grand Dame hotels across Europe. And, you know, it's about the attention to detail, the quality of the product. It's all the small things that add up to the greater. And
so do you take some of your staff from those hotels? So have some of them worked in those places?
You know, yes, a lot of our general managers on board are former hoteliers. Yes,
right.
So we do. So a lot of hoteliers do tend to come across to cruising, though it's quite different operationally. So, you know, you imagine that you're dealing with an operation land-based and then you move into an operation that's sea-based. There's a lot of difference there between the two operations. But yes, definitely, a number of them have hotel backgrounds.
And what's the most popular route at the moment? And where would you stop? And like, how many stops are there? Talk me through it. I'm really interested.
Yeah, so look, the most popular destination still globally is the Mediterranean, and especially out of the Asia Pacific region, the Mediterranean is always the number one seller. And our cruises start from a minimum of 7 nights, but they go right through to the World Cruise, which in next year is 157 nights. We've just launched 2027 World Cruise, 140 nights. So you can choose a sailing anywhere from 7 nights to 100 plus nights. So there's a lot there to choose from. But look, if you're new to cruise like you are, Renae, I would say to you, why don't you go to the Mediterranean and you try a 7-night cruise? Because that will give you a taste. You get to do a number of different ports. You wake up in a new port every day. You know, you can see different countries, multiple countries whilst you're there. It's a very easy way to travel. And Renae, I don't know, I know you're the podcast queen, so you must talk to people all around the world. But I don't know if you've seen the cost of hotels lately in Europe.
It's crazy. I was about to ask you how much this costs. Yeah, the hotels are very high. And even, you know, White Lotus, that show.
Yes.
You've seen it, right?
Yes.
I mean, the last hotel that they filmed in was the Four Seasons in Taormina in Italy.
Yes.
That hotel specifically is like 4 times more than it was before that was released.
It's about €3,500 a night.
Correct. It's starting price for a small room.
Correct. But that's just Europe in general. I mean, as soon as you start entering summer in Europe, those prices really do go very high. And we're talking because they're not large hotels. You know, a lot of the European hotels are quite small. But so the rates are very, very high. But if you look at something like luxury cruising with Regent, you can pay anywhere up to from, starting price probably around about 750 Australian dollars per person per day, right through to about $1,500 per person per day, depending on the itinerary, of course. So you've got, there's a price range there, but don't forget it's all inclusive. And so what I say to your listeners is, if you've cruised before, and there is a cruise and a cruise line for everybody.
Right.
Price of the cruise, break it down per person per day, and then under each one, place on a dot point all the add-ins, all the inclusions, because that's when you have your aha moment and you realize what incredible value cruising is, especially with Regent, because we are the only cruise line that offers that all-inclusive luxury.
Is that right? The only one?
The only one.
And talk me through the food. Have you got chefs, renowned chefs on board?
Look, we do. We actually, when you say renowned, I think our international says, having worked with many wonderful chefs over the years in hotels.
Yes. Well, hang on. Let's just touch on your hotel experience. I mean, you worked for Raffles, Kempinski.
I worked for Raffles Hotels and Resorts out of Singapore, headquarters at the time. I then had a long career with Kempinski Hotels and Resorts, very close to my heart still, because I grew up with them. I was with them in China, then Tanzania. So a very wonderful career, one that's taken me all over the world.
It has.
But it continues. It continues now with floating hotels.
And how long have you been in the cruise industry?
9 years this year. And it's gone so quickly. It was like we opened our office yesterday.
And how does it compare?
In fact, on the 1st of April was 9 years. 1st of April was 9 years since we took over, and we opened the corporate office here for both Regent and Oceania Cruises.
And how does it compare? I mean, working in those really high-end hotels to working on water, if you like. What are the major differences in your role in the business?
Well, I think for my role, look, my last role was with Raffles Hotels and Resorts, and it was a corporate role, so I was based in office. I mean,
was it in Singapore? Based in Singapore?
Based in Singapore. I mean, I was very fortunate I could walk across the road to the magnificent Raffles Singapore. But, it's very different. I don't get to work on the ships. I am actually based here at our Asia Pacific headquarters in Sydney, where we have a sales and marketing outfit, and we also have our contact center and operations side here. So it's very different, because in hotels, I worked in hotels. So you were part of the operation every day, meeting and greeting guests. Now I'm in a corporate role. I don't get to see so many guests when they get on the ship, of course, but I get to meet our wonderful guests and trade partners as I travel around the region. So different, very different, but still as satisfying.
And how do the clientele differ from, say, the luxury brands, the hotel brands you're working for, to the clients who come on board the ships?
Yeah, I don't think there is much difference, actually. I just think you have a very different relationship with your cruise clients, because you do get to know them because of the repeat guest factor.
Right.
And often in hotels, your repeat guest factor might only be once a year, or the corporate clients. So you probably don't get to spend so much time with your hotel guests that we in cruising do get to spend with our cruise guests. So it's a very different relationship model. So I think we're very fortunate in our industry, in the cruise industry. I know the hotel industry would love to have our repeat guest factor and the percentages that we enjoy. But definitely over the last 9 years, I mean, I have got to know so many of our guests, and they actually become friends. It's really quite interesting.
And what do you attribute to that repeat business? Is it just that cruises really sort of draw people in and they love them? What is it?
I think it's a number of things. I think I go back to the fact that it's incredible value for money. But also, once you get on board, you'll feel it, Renae, when you get on board, you get treated like family. And it's that, all of a sudden, it's that warmth in your heart. And it's not something that I can tell you about, because it's the feeling. And at Raffles Hotels and Resorts, we used to call it emotional luxury. And I say the same thing now with cruising with Regent Seven Seas Cruises. You can have the most beautiful ships or the most beautiful hotels in the world, but it's the way it makes you feel. And I really think that that's what keeps bringing people back, is that emotional luxury, that emotional attachment they have with not only the beautiful ships, but the crew on board are outstanding. Now, Renae, I've always thought that I had a wonderful memory, but I can tell you nothing beats those crew on board for memories.
So hang on, does the same crew stay on the same ships?
No, they actually rotate amongst the entire fleet, but they get to know everybody, because don't forget, if I'm traveling with Regent, I may not necessarily just only travel on Grandeur or sail on Splendor or Navigator or Voyager or Mariner. I switch around depending on the itinerary. So they get to see the crew in different settings, different itineraries, different ships. So you really get to know, a lot of people when you're cruising.
Yeah,
And also
wow.
don't forget, cruising in general, not just talking Regent now, but cruising in general, it attracts like-minded people. So that's why it's always very important to choose the right cruise line, because you're finding your tribe.
Right.
Okay, you cruise with your tribe. And so those friendships start. So I don't know if you've ever met people that go, oh, I met so-and-so on a cruise and we're doing another one next year. And then the friendship base gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's fantastic to see. And that was what's really different about cruising to hotels, is that
Yes.
guests meet each other and then they start holidaying together.
Because you're there.
And I
You're
think
there all
that's
together.
right.
There's
And I
nowhere to
think
go.
that's the biggest difference.
Wow. And what's the demographic of people going on your cruises?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Renae, since COVID, we have seen a lot younger clientele. So it's definitely trending younger. Globally, we peak at about 65, 67 years of age and then really tail off. But we really are seeing that 50 plus age group coming through now and enjoying cruising, and especially business people. If you are self-employed, you can go on cruises. They don't have to be 7 nights. They can be longer cruises like our Grand Voyages or the World Cruise, and you can still work and run your business from the ship. And that's what we're seeing.
Because the world's changed.
The world has changed and people are working remotely.
How fantastic.
Yes.
And I've got a question for you. I recognize this may not apply to your luxury ships, but I'm hearing all of these stories about retirees choosing to live on board cruise ships instead of being in retirement homes because it's cheaper, it's more fun, the socialization, the 24 care. Is this something that's actually happening and going to happen in the future?
See it so much with Regent. I mean, we've definitely had a couple of long-standing guests who enjoy spending a lot of time on our ships, but I haven't seen that trend with Regent. And I would think it's more of a North American trend than it is. I definitely haven't seen it out of our part of the world, that's for sure.
Okay, no, I've actually met some
But
Australians.
believe you me,
They
if I
tell me
had the
about it.
money, I'd live on a ship.
Oh, that's right.
So, it's sounding very, very attractive.
Absolutely. Another question. I know these are random questions, but as I said, I've never been cruising. So if I'm asking the dumb questions, it's because I don't know the answers. But can you take your pet on there, your dog on there, or not?
No, not at all. We're not, it's not that we're not pet friendly, but we have to think we've got up to 746 guests, up to 560 crew on board. We don't have pets on board.
No, it makes sense.
We have to think of everyone.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
And are there a lot of women in the industry?
There are a lot of women in this industry, actually, but it's no different than the hotel industry. I think this sector in general attracts a lot of women. They're outstanding. They're talented women across all the different business units, whether it be sales, marketing, operations, itinerary planning, destination services, human resources. I mean, so many talented women. It's fantastic.
Amazing.
Don't forget that I'm only one of 40,000 employees with Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings.
Wow.
Yeah, it goes to show you're one person, contributing to the success of an organization. It's a large organization with many, many women.
Yes,
And
but
don't
also,
forget,
I mean, you have a very big job.
I have a great job, but I've also got we've got a managing director international who's a woman, and I also have a president of Regent Seven Seas Cruises who is the first female president of Regent Seven Seas Cruises, Andrea DeMarco. So
That's
surrounded by
fantastic.
strong women, very talented women, it's a good place to be.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think there's just more and more women coming up now, and the industry generally, the luxury hotel or luxury hotel business, luxury hospitality rather, is favouring and looking for women in higher places, which I just love.
I think it's, I think from a female perspective, we tend to nurture. Men and women bring different talents to any role. And I've been very fortunate in my time that I've worked with both incredibly professional women and gents, both who have been very supportive of my career. So I don't have one relationship with the other, I just say I think it always depends on the individual, and I've been very fortunate to work with fantastic people.
How fantastic. And I have listened to a number of your podcasts before we met today, and I've heard you say numerous times that the key to success in this industry is hard work.
It's hard work. There's no easy route, Renae. And, if I'm talking with people coming through the industry today, it's hard work and it's consistency and it's determination, and you just got to get out there every day. You know, there are days that you have magnificent days and there are days where are very challenging, but every day you've got to jump out of bed, you've got to be determined, you've got to be relentless, but you've got to roll with the punches. And, you know, life's not easy. And it doesn't matter
100%.
what industry you're in, life's not easy. But the wonderful thing for us in this industry is we are selling happiness. And you can never forget that we're selling happiness. I'm not selling widgets.
No.
I'm selling happiness. And I think that's where we're blessed. Very
I'm
blessed.
going to write that down too. I love that quote. You're full of great quotes today, Lisa.
Must have had enough coffees.
And what about you? Where are you traveling when you want to go on holidays these days? Are you always cruising? And do you always look for luxury? Where do you like to go?
Oh, you know that saying, the butcher's cat's always the skinniest, is very true. I don't get to do enough cruising. I'd love to. I'm actually just planning a trip as we speak, and I am looking at a cruise, Copenhagen to Amsterdam.
Wow.
It's on our Seven Seas Mariner in July. And what I love about it, in November last year, I was very fortunate to go on and do the preview cruise on Seven Seas Grandeur. And from there, I took my 80-year-old mother, who's Norwegian, and we went to Norway for the first time, Norway and Sweden. And it was truly magnificent. So I'm going to take her back this year with my father, and we're going to do the Mariner cruise from Copenhagen to Amsterdam. It's a 20-night cruise, and it goes right up to the North Cape, the top of Norway, and then back down, and it calls in, of course, to Scotland as well. There's some beautiful stops along the way, but truly a magnificent sailing. So I am really looking forward to that one.
Wow. And as you say, it's just a reminder for someone who hasn't been on a cruise that who you go with is really critical, because you're there together.
You're there together. And, you know, I go back to that point. Find your tribe. There is a cruise and a cruise line for everybody. And, you know, when you walk on board, you get that feeling of comfort, or you see other people and you start speaking to them. And that's why, you know, Renae, when cruise lines are hosting events around our country, go to the events.
Yes.
Have a look at the people that are turning up. Have a chat to people who've sailed with those cruise lines before. That way you'll find your tribe. So the more people we get along to our events, the more that we can tell the story, but they'll get that feeling whether this is the right cruise line and the right offering for them.
For them, yeah. And tell me about the Asia Pacific market. I didn't know, and as I say, I've lived in Asia, spent lots of time in the luxury hotel business there. I didn't know that they loved cruising.
Oh, they love cruising. It's still quite in its infancy. I mean, look, if I look at mainland China, they have been doing expedition cruising, enjoying expedition cruising for about the last 20 years.
Wow.
They're not so big at the moment on ocean cruising. So there's opportunity there. But then I look across Southeast Asia and Japan, and they just adore ocean cruising. But of course, they've got to find the right, the way that they have.
Can I just, again, the ignorant person over here, what if you're not ocean cruising, what are you doing?
Expedition or river cruising.
River cruising. So where would you do that?
Well, we don't do river cruising.
Okay.
So, you know, we are purely luxury ocean cruising.
That's what I thought. Yeah, okay.
And we don't have expedition ships. We're not going to Antarctica or the Arctic.
I see.
So we literally concentrate on following the sun with classic ocean cruising. So we've had major support from our partners in Asia. It continues to grow. It's a fantastic market. They're very grateful. They love cruising. They see the value in cruising. And they also like the safety and the risk. They're risk averse. They love the fact that you don't have to worry about packing, unpacking, airports, taxis, trains.
Well, we can all relate to that. I mean, particularly, you know, in the last kind of couple of years, you know, going through an airport and having to get there 3 hours early. Some of the airlines rather are still insisting on that. It can be a real drag.
Yeah. And you realize that when you hop on board a ship and you unpack once. And it's that feeling is, I'm on. I don't need to do anything else.
Yeah.
You know, I'm on now. And then all I have to do is enjoy myself. And it really is that peace of mind.
And another ignorant question. So if I unpack and all my stuff's there, I'm thinking, you know, I need to get into this, Lisa. What do I do if I've forgotten an item of clothing?
If you've forgotten an amount of clothing.
Yeah, can you buy clothes on board? How does that work?
Well, you can, but I mean, don't forget, you've got a new port of call every day.
Oh, so, right.
I can imagine you getting on in Barcelona and thinking, oh, maybe I forgot something. And then, of course, in Monte Carlo, it gives you a good excuse to go off and do a bit of shopping, or in Saint-Tropez.
Of course.
I don't think you're going to be hard up for finding a destination to buy a pretty frock, let's just say, or a new pair of
Just checking.
shoes. It's never been an issue for me, Renae. And in fact, sometimes it's better that you do forget items because then you have room in your luggage.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And obviously part of the package is you fly somewhere in Europe if you're sitting in Australia or in Asia and then go. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So look, for Regent Seven Seas Cruises, we don't have any home ported cruise ships here in Australia.
Right.
And so what we do is we tend to fly cruise, is what it's called, except for our close to home sailings. So don't forget, in the last couple of years, we've been very fortunate to welcome down the Seven Seas Explorer to Australia. So you can actually get on her in Singapore or some port in Asia and then come down to Australia. She then has a season between Australia and New Zealand and then heads back up through to Japan and then on to Alaska for the Alaska summer season. So, you know, we do have quite a bit of options. We have a number of options there for close to home if you don't want to fly a long way away, you know, and everywhere's a long way away from Australia, unfortunately.
Yes.
But if you only want to travel 7, 8, 10 hours, then you can look somewhere close to home.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for filling me in on the luxury cruise industry.
Have I got you over the line, Renae? Have I got you over the line? Have I got you over the line?
I think you might. I think I've got to come to one of these events and get ready. It sounds fantastic.
You would love it. And dressed in that beautiful colour you are today, you would love the Seven Seas Splendor because she's in that beautiful blush pink.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, so each of those ships have their own personality, their own colour schemes.
Wow.
Yeah.
It just sounds magical.
It is magical, Renae. You've got to get on board a ship.
No, it sounds wonderful. Well, before we go, we ask all of our guests where to from here, and it can be what you're about to do today, your next trip, although you've talked about one of them, or just what's happening within the business. So, Lisa, where to from here for you?
Okay, so we have just today launched our 2027 World Cruise. So this is a very good day to actually have us. We've done very well. It's an exciting World Cruise because it is on the Seven Seas Splendor. And so that's been a really exciting launch today. We're now getting ready, of course, for our next new season launch, which will take place in July.
Wow.
So we've got a lot going on. In fact, you know, this is the time now where we start preparing for the new season. So we've launched the World Cruise. We're now going into the new season launch. We're still working with all of our trade partners around the country because don't forget, we're gearing up now to the busiest time of departure across Australia. That first week in June, if you speak to any of the airlines, is the busiest week for outbound flights. So, you know, we're all getting ready, and Australia is becoming an incredible place for travel. I mean, we almost, between June, July and August, we almost all go away.
Yeah.
So it's really incredible the number of people that are traveling abroad. So we're getting ready. We're actually ramping up now to our busiest outbound season, but also getting ready to launch that 2026-2027 season, because us Aussies love to book so far in advance.
So I was about to ask you, because I am terrible. I'm flying to India, Mumbai on Monday. I haven't got anything booked yet. I mean, I've got invitations from people. I haven't had it, like, I'm very last minute, but so I'm the exception, am I?
No, look, yes, I would say you're the exception. Absolutely.
Well, look, it's been great to speak with you, Lisa. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck with the first week of June. It sounds very hectic.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be very hectic. But look, have a great trip, Renae. I'm glad we had a chat today. I hope I've converted you to cruising. And please let me know when I get to see you on board Regent Seven Seas Cruise.
Will do. Sounds fantastic. Safe travels, Lisa.
You too. Bye-bye. Take care,
See
Renae.
you again. Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe here and follow us on Instagram and Facebook for regular travel updates. You can also hear our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.